All right, ladies and gentlemen, do you know what day it is? Well, do you? Do you know what day it is? It is day 80. 80 of the 100 Days of Narration Challenge. And we are in the middle of Harry Potter week or J.K. Rowling week or what have you. And today's book will be the fourth book of that, fourth book of the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. And this is about the point in the books where they get really, really huge. Like, this is, wow, how much? Yeah, it's huge. Have you noticed? Like, every book just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Topping around the Order of the Phoenix. I think about that point I started using smaller font after that particular point, but still massive books. Like, wow. I was really impressed when it first came out. I was like, this seems significantly longer. This seems to be like the previous 3 books combined or so. But what is the Goblet of Fire? The Goblet of Fire. It is the summer holiday. I'm reading the back of the book, by the way. It is the summer holidays, and soon Harry Potter will be starting his 4th year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry is counting the days. There are new spells to be learnt, more Quidditch to be played, and Hogwarts Castle to continue exploring. But Harry needs to be careful. There are unexpected dangers lurking. Yes, indeed. J.K. Rowling continues to surprise and delight with the power of a rich, demanding, and action-packed storytelling. These are all review. Okay, well, I guess it's printed in Australia, I guess, because all the reviews on the back, the blurb on the back, are for Australian newspapers. Let's have a look here. First published in Great Britain. That's interesting. But we've got, details flourish. A cauldron full of subplots bubbles away. The storyline is, once again, brilliantly inventive. From the Sydney Morning Herald. Impressive detail, humor, and inventiveness. A triumph by Courier Mail, which I think is actually an English paper. Okay, so it's not all Australian. Okay. But anyway, let's do what we did yesterday, which is we'll start from a chapter, we'll flip to a random page, and then we'll just go on to the next chapter. Okay, start there and flip through until, wait. Did the Harry Potter book stop doing chapters after a certain... Nope, here we go. Chapter 27. Which is a multiple of 9. Oh dear God. So it's like, previously I also had another chapter. Yesterday I did chapter 9. Now 27, a multiple of 9. Intriguing. Well, let's have a read of this, shall we? Yeah. Sorry, trying to position my hands in a way. Yeah. Okay. All right, this will work. Or doesn't it? Damn it! Position it! Yeah! Okay, how about this? Does this work? Okay. This is a very awkward position I've taken around my microphone. I should have thought of this before I set up my microphone. Now it's just confusing to set up. Bloody hell. Okay. Chapter 27, Padfoot Returns. One of the best things about the aftermath of the second task was that everybody was very keen to hear details of what had happened down in the lake. Was very keen to hear details of what had happened down in the lake, which meant that for once, Ron was getting to share Harry's limelight. Harry noticed that Ron's version of events changed subtly with every retelling. At first, he gave what seemed to be the truth. It tallied with Hermione's story anyway. I'm saying that name right, aren't I? God, every time. Hermione's story anyway. Dumbledore had put all the hostages into a bewitched sleep in Professor McGonagall's office. Professor Dumbledore, there's no Professor Dumbledore there, Dumbledore had put all the hostages into a bewitched sleep in Professor McGonagall's office, them that they would be quite safe and would awake when they were back above water. And would awake when they were above the water. 1 week later, however, Ron was telling a thrilling tale of kidnap in which he struggled single-handedly against 30 heavily armed... 30? It's 50, which is an even larger number than 30. 1 week later, however, Ron was telling a thrilling tale of kidnap in which he struggled single-handedly against 50 heavily armed merpeople who had to beat him into submission before tying him up. "But I had my wand hidden up my sleeve. But I had my wand hidden up my sleeve," he assured Padma Patil, who seemed to be a lot keener on Ron now that he was getting so much attention, and was making a point of talking to him every time they passed in the corridors. "I could have taken those mer-idiots any time I wanted." What were you going to do? What were you going to do? Snore at them?" said Hermione waspishly. People had been teasing her so much about being the thing that Victor Crumb would miss that she was in a rather tetchy mood. People had been teasing her so much about being the thing that Victor Crumb would miss that she was in a rather tetchy... Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how does... I don't get it. I mean, is the only thing that Victor Crumb would miss, or the fact that she is the thing that Victor Crumb... Okay. It's been a long time, so I don't... yeah, okay, we'll go with that. People have been teasing her so much about being the thing that Victor Crumb would miss... What that Victor Crumb would miss were... She was in a rather tetchy mood. Ron's ears went red, and he reverted thereafter to the bewitched sleep version of events. As they entered March, the weather became drier, but cruel winds skinned their hands and faces every time they went out onto the grounds. There were delays in the post because the owls kept being blown off course. Kept getting blown off course. Kept being blown off course, rather. Okay, no, this is not a good position to put myself in. Let's try it this way, even though I'll tire my arms. There were delays in the post because the owls kept being blown off course. The brown owl that Harry had sent to Sirius with the dates of the Hogmeets weekend turned up at breakfast on Friday morning with half its feathers sticking up the wrong way. Harry had no sooner torn off Sirius's reply than it took flight, clearly afraid it was going to be sent outside again. Sirius's letter was almost as short as the previous one. Be at still at end of road out of Hogsmeade past Dervish and Bangs at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Bring as much food as you can. He hasn't come back to Hogsmeade, said Ron incredulously. It looks like it, doesn't it? Said Hermione. I can't believe him, said Harry tensely. If he's caught... Made it so far, though, hasn't he? Said Ron. And it's not like the place is swarming with Dementors anymore. Harry folded up the letter, thinking. If he was honest with himself, he really wanted to see Sirius again. He therefore approached the final lesson of the afternoon, double potions, feeling considerably more cheerful than he usually did when descending the steps to the dungeon. Let's try that again. Feeling considerably more cheerful than he usually did when descending the steps to the dungeons. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle were standing in a huddle outside the classroom door with Pansy Parkinson's gang of Slytherin girls. All of them were looking at something Harry couldn't see and sniggering heartily. Pansy's pug-like face peered excitedly around Goyle's broad back as Harry, Ron, and Hermione approached. There they are, she giggled, and the knot of Slytherins broke apart. Harry saw that Pansy had a magazine in her hands. Witch Weekly. The moving picture on the front showed a curly-haired witch who was smiling toothily and pointing at a large sponge cake with her wand. "You might find something to interest you in there, Granger," Pansy said loudly, and she threw the magazine at Hermione, who caught it, looking startled. At that moment, the dungeon door opened, and Snape beckoned them all inside. Hermione, Harry, and Ron headed for a table at the back of the dungeon as usual. Once Snape had turned his back on them to write up the ingredients of today's potion on the blackboard, Hermione hastily riffled through the magazine under the desk. Let's try that again. Hermione hastily riffled through the magazine under the desk. At last, in the center pages, Hermione found what they were looking for. Harry and Ron leant in closer. Leant in? That is a word, but leaned, I think, is more typical. Leaned, whatever. A color photograph of Harry headed a short piece entitled Harry Potter's Secret Heartache. "A boy like no other, perhaps, yet a boy suffering all the usual pangs of adolescence," writes Rita Skeeter. "Deprived of love since the tragic demise of his parents, 14-year-old Harry Potter thought he had found solace in his steady girlfriend at Hogwarts, Muggle-born Hermione Granger. Little did he know that he would soon..." There's no soon in there. Little did he know that he would shortly be suffering yet another emotional blow in a life already littered with personal loss. Miss Granger, a plain but ambitious girl, seems to have a taste for famous wizards that Harry alone cannot satisfy. Since the arrival of Hogwarts of Victor Krum, Bulgaria Seeker... not Bulgarian Seeker? Not Bulgaria's Seeker? Okay. Bulgaria's Seeker and hero of the Lost World Quidditch Cup, Miss Granger has been toying with both boys' affections. Krum, who is openly smitten with the devious Miss Granger, has already invited her to visit him in Bulgaria over the summer holidays and insists that he has never felt this way about any other girl. However, it might not be Miss Granger's doubtful natural charms which have captured these unfortunate boys' interest. "She's really ugly," says Pansy Parkinson, a pretty, vivacious fourth-year student, "but she'd be well up to making a love potion. She's quite brainy. I think that's how she's doing it." Love potions are, of course, banned at Hogwarts, and no doubt Albus Dumbledore will want to investigate these claims. In the meantime, Harry Potter's well-wishers must hope that next time he bestows his heart upon a worthier candidate. "I told you," Ron hissed at Hermione as she stared down at the article. "I told you not to annoy Rita Skeeter. She's made you out to be some sort of scarlet woman." Hermione stopped looking astonished and snorted with laughter. "Scarlet woman?" she repeated, shaking with repressed giggles as she looked around at Ron. There's no round in there, it's just round. She repeated, shaking with suppressed giggles as she looked round at Ron. "It's what my mom calls them," Ron muttered, his ears going red again. "If that's the best Rita can do, she's losing her touch," said Hermione, still giggling as she threw Witch Weekly under the empty chair beside her. "What a pile of old rubbish." She looked over at the Slytherins, who were all watching her and Ron. Sorry. Slip of the tongue there, watching her and Ron. No, that only happens in the later novels, as we... Oh, spoilers. You should know this. Or maybe you don't. Then again, you know, I barely read these days. That's my problem as well. She looked over at the Slytherins, who were all watching her and Harry closely across the room to see if they had been upset by the article. Hermione gave them a sarcastic smile and a wave, and she, Harry, and Ron started unpacking the ingredients they would need for their wit-sharpening potion. "There's something funny, though," said Hermione 10 minutes later, holding her pestle suspended over a ball of scarab beetles. Let's try that again. I said that wrong. "There's something funny, though," said Hermione 10 minutes later, holding her pestle suspended over a ball of scarab beetles. "How could Rita Skeeter have known?" "Known what?" said Ron quickly. You haven't been mixing up love potions, have you?" "Don't be stupid," Hermione snapped, starting to pound up the beetles again. "No, it's just, how did she know Victor asked me to visit him over the summer?" Hermione blushed scarlet as she said this, and determinedly avoided Ron's eyes. "What?" said Ron. "What? Is that meant to be an astonished what, or just a regular what?" "I think it's astonished." "What?" said Ron, dropping his pestle with a loud clunk. "He asked me right after he'd pulled me out of the lake." Turn the page, Hermione muttered. After he'd got rid of his shark's head. The sentence ends there. After he'd got rid of his shark's head. Madame Pomfrey gave us both blankets, and then he sort of pulled me away from the judges so they wouldn't hear, and he said, if I wasn't doing anything over the summer, would I like to— "And what did you say?" said Ron, who had picked up his pestle and was grinding it on the desk. Let's try it again. Said Ron, who had picked up his pestle and was grinding it on the desk, a good 6 inches away from his bowl. There's no away there. A good 6. Let's try that entire paragraph again. "And what did you say?" said Ron, who had picked up his pestle and was grinding it on the desk, a good 6 inches from his bowl, because he was looking at Hermione. "And he did say he'd never felt the same way about anyone else," Hermione went on, going so red now that Harry could almost feel the heat coming from her. "But how could Rita Skeeter have heard him? She wasn't there. Or was she? Maybe she has got an invisibility cloak. Maybe she sneaked into the grounds to watch the second task." Sneaked? That's another word like lent. Lent and leaned. Sneaked is like, I don't know, I would use snuck. Snuck in. Do you guys use snuck or do you use sneaked? I guess they're both valid. Whatever. She wasn't there, or was she? Maybe she has got an invisibility cloak. Maybe she sneaked into the grounds to watch the second task. "And what did you say?" Ron repeated, pounding his pestle down so hard that it dented the desk. "Well, I was too busy seeing whether you and Harry were okay to—" "Fascinating though your social life undoubtedly is, Miss Granger," said an icy voice right behind them, "I must ask you not to discuss it in my class. 10 points from Gryffindor." Snape had glided over to their desk while they had been talking. Let's try that one again. Snape had glided over to their desk while they had been talking. The whole class was now looking around at them. Malfoy took the opportunity to flash "Potter stinks" across the dungeon at Harry. "Ah, reading magazines under the reading the magazines under the magazines as well? No. Ah, reading magazines under the table as well," Snape added, snatching up the copy of Witch Weekly. "A further 10 points from Gryffindor. Oh, but of course," Snape's black eyes glittered as they fell on Rita Skeeter's article, "Potter has to keep up with his press cuttings." The dungeon rang with the Slytherin's laughter, and an unpleasant smile curled Snape's thin mouth. To Harry's fury, he began to read the article out loud. Harry Potter's secret heartache. Dear, dear Potter, what's ailing you now? A boy like no other, perhaps? Harry could feel his face burning now. Snape was pausing at the end of every sentence to allow the Slytherins a heavy laugh. The article sounded 10 times worse when read by Snape. Harry Potter's well-wishers must hope that next time he bestows his heart upon a worthier candidate. How very touching, sneered Snape, rolling up the magazine to continued gales of laughter from the Slytherins. Damn it, I'm never going to say that word right. From the Slytherins. From the Slytherins. Well, now I'm going to make him sound like Christopher Walken. Well, I think I had better separate the three of you so you can keep your minds on your potions rather than your tangled love lives. Weasley, you may stay here. There's no may in there. Burp, sorry. Weasley, you may... I'm doing it again. I'm inserting words. Weasley, you stay here. Miss Granger over there, beside Miss Parkinson. Potter, that table in front of my desk. Move. Now. Furious, Harry threw his ingredients and his bag into this... Furious, Harry threw his ingredients into... Furious, Harry threw his ingredients and his bag into his cauldron and dragged it up to the front of the dungeon to the empty table. Snape followed, sat down at his desk, and watched Harry unload his cauldron. Determined not to look at Snape, Harry resumed the mashing of his scarab beetles, imagining each one to have Snape's face. All this attention seems to have inflated your already overlarge head, Potter, said Snape quietly, once the rest of the class had settled down again. Harry didn't answer. He knew Snape was trying to provoke him. He had done this before. No doubt he was hoping for an excuse to take a round 50 point... Okay. To take a round, go around the block, like maybe I'll take around 30 minutes to get there, or around like a round, because that's what's here, a round, rather than around. Is that meant to be there? I don't know. I'll read it that way. No doubt he was hoping for an excuse to take around 50 points from Gryffindor before the end of the class. You might be laboring under the delusion that the entire wizarding world is impressed with you, Snape went on, so quietly that no one else could hear him. Harry continued to pound his scarab beetles, even though he had already reduced them to a very fine powder, and I said them instead of them. Harry continued to pound his scarab beetles, even though he had already reduced them to a very fine powder. And I said very fine powder instead of very fine powder. Harry continued to pound his scarab beetles, even though he had already reduced them to a very fine powder. But I don't care how many times your picture appears in the papers. To me, Potter, you are nothing but a nasty little boy who considers rules to be beneath him. Harry tipped the powdered beetles into his cauldron and started cutting up his ginger roots. His hands were now shaking slightly out of anger, but he kept his eyes down, as though he couldn't hear what Snape was telling him, what Snape was saying to him. And that's a good place to stop, even though I'm actually starting at the beginning of another sentence on another page. I just didn't want to end in the middle of a sentence, because that's horrible. Every single freaking time I pick a book that ends in the middle or starts in another sentence. Well, not always, but it just seems to happen often enough. Anyway, That was day 80 of the 100 Days of Narration Challenge. Book 4 of the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you come back tomorrow where we'll be going on to the 5th book. The 5th book out of 7. Yes, indeed. Yes. Do that. Thank you. Hey, you seem like a cool, wonderful, and/or awesome individual with impeccable taste in voice actors. So why not follow me on Facebook or Twitter? You can keep up with the latest projects I'm in, or that my friends are in, or that you could be in, because I occasionally post links to open editions to various projects that require voice acting out there, or that nobody's in, but they're interesting projects nonetheless that you may also find interesting. Also, lots of random thoughts about whatever's on my mind at that particular moment. Usually it's about food or video games, or foodie video games. Anyway, you can follow me on Facebook at OmadonVA or Twitter at Omadon. Hope to see you there.